Ian Thorpe here. The Fox ESS stackable all-in-one home storage system is changing the way Aussies power their homes. With full house backup and modular capacity up to 49 kilowatt hours, backed by IP66 protection and a 12-year warranty, it's engineered to last. Systems that are installed seamlessly, set up efficiently, make it one of the most installer-friendly systems on the market. To learn more, visit au.fox-ess.com.
Welcome to Solar Insiders, a podcast reporting on the people, technologies and policies shaping the world's biggest energy source. Presented by Sophie Vorrath, the editor of Renew Economy and One Step Off the Grid, and Rachel Williamson, senior reporter at Renew Economy. Solar Insiders is proudly brought to you by Pylon, the essential solar design tool to grow your solar business with quick and effortless proposals that will impress your customers. And Goodwe, the global solar inverter and energy storage company behind the all-in-one ESA battery system, who are proud to work with Australian cricketer and Goodwe ambassador Alex Carey.
Hello and welcome to Solar Insiders. My name's Sophie Vorrath and I am the editor at Renew Economy. This week we are talking to Dr. Andrea Nauze, who is an associate professor at Deakin University. Dr. Nauze and her team have just spent the last year on a study into one of the more promising ways that we might truly democratize rooftop solar and battery storage, and that is through virtual energy networks. They conducted a study with about 300 participating households and people, some of them with solar, some of them with solar and battery storage, some of them with none of the above, to see how people responded and interacted and how it worked to share electrons between houses. So say I have a rooftop solar system and I'm not home during the day, and I decide I want to share my rooftop power with my brother or my neighbor or my cousin in another state. This is what virtual energy networks can conceivably do. Dr. Nauze and her team wanted to see how easily they could engage people on both sides of the equation, the buyers and the sellers, and they wanted to see how it all worked, and nut out what could be achieved through a virtual energy network. And they've come out with some really interesting findings after this closing the study this month. And obviously they'll be spending some time now writing more in-depth reports. But we have got together with Dr. Nauze to discuss with her what those initial findings are, including that it's a really good way to make people feel buy-in to the consumer energy revolution, even if they don't have their own solar and battery. So let's hear from Dr. Andrea Nauze from Deakin University. Andrea Nauze, welcome to Solar Insiders.
Thanks for having me.
Now, it was about a year ago that we had you on our Switched On podcast where you spoke to Anne Delaney, and that was when you were just beginning on your journey with this study that we're going to talk about today, which is about virtual energy networks. And I guess what we will do is what we did last time and get you to start by telling us, what is a virtual energy network?
Yes, well, 12 months has gone by very, very quickly. It's been a bit of a wild ride, but we're thrilled to actually have completed the study and found some really interesting results, which no doubt we'll get into. But as you say, what is a virtual energy network still needs explaining. It is you can think about it like a marketplace. It is the example that we studied. Basically, there's some software that matches people who want to trade within the electricity network. So if you have rooftop solar and I don't, we can trade through this virtual energy network. The physical network is still being used. So you're not detached from the grid at all. You're still being serviced by an electricity retailer. it's an add-on to a standard retail plan where you and I can trade and we determine the price at which we trade. At least a portion of that price, but let's not get into too much of the detail at this point.
No, we can go into some more of that in a bit. Now, I want to start by saying, you did. What I noticed in the report is that you got a huge amount of interest in this. So you obviously explained it very well, and it also shows, like, I think you said, it says that you had 1,600 expressions of interest in joining, and you wound up with about 300 in the trial.
That's right. Yep, 300 sites. So slightly less participants. We had a few people with multiple sites, which is an interesting use case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe landlords and tenants and
Yeah,
that kind of
family
thing.
members,
Yeah.
people, people with a holiday
Yep.
home, 2 different, like residences.
It's such a great concept, and it sounds a little bit too good to be true, if you know what I mean. Like, it's the idea that you could have your solar, and if I'm not using it, I could share it with my brother who lives a couple of kilometers away and doesn't have solar, or I could share it with my friend who lives down the coast. And then even interstate. It really sounds like such a crazily brilliant idea that is too good to be true. But obviously, you've done this study, and it is not too good to be true. How can we talk a bit more about how the software works? I noticed that there's a few different ways that you can trade that is mentioned in the study.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's not, there's no silver bullet. There are a lot of complexities in the energy transition. We're trying to do massive things and it requires, lots and lots of different interventions. I think one of the most exciting things about this idea, and it's not my idea to be clear, this is somebody else's idea. I've come in to study it and understand its benefits, that it does use the existing infrastructure that we already have, that we've already invested in. It doesn't require additional hardware or anything like that. We don't have to buy more stuff. We're just making better use of what we already have. So you asked about different types of trading. There, within the virtual energy network, there are 2 types of trading. So this is all through Nauze's Power Tracer software, and it's supported by energy locals. So this is a particular application of that software, and the way that it has been set up for this particular virtual energy network is that you can have peer-to-peer trades, which is exactly what you were thinking. You can trade with your brother and you agree the price for the energy component of the cost of you consuming. And you basically establish a trade rule. So we agree that when you are exporting and you are exporting, excess, and I am consuming at the same time, that I will pay you whatever, 5 cents, 8 cents, 10 cents, whatever we decide, a kilowatt hour for that energy. That's a peer-to-peer trade. The other type of trade is an anonymous pool trade.
Right.
So the way this works is you as the solar exporter give the system sort of your minimum, we'd call it in economics, willingness to accept. So basically the minimum price that you'd be willing to trade at. Everybody else does that, and I as a buyer also put in what is the maximum price I'd be willing to pay for matched energy, and then the system goes and matches people based on the prices. So it ranks them and then matches them and clears that market. So that's an anonymous pool trade. Now, I know that there are other versions of virtual energy networks that have different types of trades and different pricing. This is the particular version that we were studying.
Yeah, it's real. Both of them seem great, and one of the phrases that caught my attention reading the report was behavioural burden, because it really is essential with these kind of things where the goal is to make better use of our resources, that they're simple, like keep it simple, and that people don't have to sort of sit at their computer and watch, and it's not like eBay or something where you're bidding
Well, I've
and
got some very good friends who love sitting on eBay
Yeah.
and love watching prices. And
yes,
if that's,
if
there you
that's your
can
jam,
be.
that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
for a lot of consumers, and certainly for it to have broad appeal, it does need to be pretty simple.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You said that it's supported by Energy Locals, who are a sort of alternative retailer, and I guess it's really important that a retailer's in there as well for this to be something that can be applied more broadly. Um, but you would think that it would eat into the retailer kind of piece of the pie. So how do we avoid that? What's the sort of solution there?
Yeah, well, look, that's not something that we were looking at in the study. We were trying to understand what are the benefits for the seller, for the buyer, and then if we think about with behavior change, what are the potential benefits for the grid? Um, that was the focus of this study. From the retailer's perspective, I mean, this is a product that they are offering. So obviously they think that there is value in providing it to their customers. Um, the customers that they are attracting are probably likely to be stickier in the sense that once they're trading with their neighbors in their community, they're probably more loyal to that brand. So, there's a range of potential reasons why retailers might offer this package. It's also, I guess a premium offering on the side of their regular
Yeah.
electricity plans.
So
Yeah.
presumably they'd have the other costs that are part of the bill stack as per their normal, and then whatever the cost is that you decide you want to trade, that's added in.
Yeah, exactly. So you're still, and I guess that's part of the detail of how the pricing works. So for your variable charge, I'm sure your listeners are all over this, but standard electricity pricing is you pay a fixed daily charge and a variable charge. The variable charge is based on how much you're using. That variable charge we then can break down into other many things contribute to that variable charge. The network, and a bit of margin for the retailer, and then the cost of the actual electricity itself, which is typically bought from the wholesale market. So in the virtual energy network, that electricity cost, instead of it being bought from the wholesale market, it's just being bought through the virtual energy network. So the other components are still being paid to the retailer.
Yep. And before we get to the really meaty part, which is obviously the findings of what you actually were studying in this study, a couple more points. I noticed in the report it says that there was only 1/3 of the participants that didn't have solar or a battery, which is interesting in itself. And 2/3. Did you have many people that had solar and battery? Was that the majority, or?
It wasn't the majority. I'd actually have to go and look at some of the tables to remember
Oh,
exactly what the proportion was. I think it was, off the top of my head, something around 20% of people with solar had batteries,
had
but
batteries. That would gel with the
yeah,
general
I would have
stats
to
at
go
the
back and
moment.
look though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but yes, so we did have about a third of participants who didn't have rooftop solar or battery. And they were the hardest to engage. And there's a range of reasons why that might be the case. But certainly that was something that's very important to both to the study and to this idea of the virtual energy network, is it's bringing not people who haven't got devices for various reasons. There could be economic barriers, like physical barriers, for depending on what kind of dwelling you have, to kind of involve them uh, and spread some of the benefits of this, cheap distributed energy.
And I imagine that's one of the most valuable parts of this study, and I'll let you speak to that. But getting those people who, for whatever reason, as you say, are not necessarily engaged. They're not, they're maybe just not wanting to think about their energy, or they haven't been able to. Perhaps they're even a little bit miffed that they're not involved, and that they can't be. Yeah, so that's going to be a really instructive thing for the industry more broadly, as well as for this study, in how do we reach those people and hear more from them about what it is they want and need, and how we can provide it. So yeah, I mean, that to me was one of the really great parts of the findings from your study was this idea that people felt it was going to make everything a bit fairer, and that's been such an elusive part of this energy transition.
Yeah. So as I said, it was, obviously critical to get those people who don't have rooftop solar or other devices into the study. They I think there's, as we said, a lot of reasons why people might be less engaged. Even the group that we did recruit, those without rooftop solar, they're not necessarily representative of the broader population either. They still tend to look a little bit different on some descriptive characteristics like income and education, for example. So they are still an interested and engaged population. And that also makes sense because they might have been listening to the podcast, they're reading articles about energy in the newspaper, and that's how they hear about the trial. So, and, you could probably speak to some of our participants. It did require a bit of effort to actually register with the study. So we're incredibly grateful that people did it for us.
Right. Yeah.
And also, it was a little bit of a hard message to sell because fundamentally we wanted to understand what the benefits are. We couldn't, say, you will save this amount of money, it will be good for you, because that's part of what we wanted to understand.
We think this might be the case, but can you help us work that out?
Yeah, and people received gift cards and things for participating that we wanted to help them manage the risk that it wasn't going to be beneficial for them. But yeah, I think articulating the benefits and potentially, yeah, designing products that are even simpler potentially might be pretty important going forward.
And once they were in, do you feel like they were in and not sort of looking for the exit? Were they invested once they knew what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you mentioned the result on fairness, and I guess I'm a statistician, so this is important to me. But that's a what we would argue is a causal effect of being involved in a virtual energy network. It's not just we can imagine that people who sign up for this kind of program have different perceptions than somebody who doesn't sign up. But what we're actually identifying is that um, participating in the virtual energy network changes these perceptions about fairness because it has this randomized control trial structure. So we're comparing people who were trading to people who weren't, but who would eventually start trading. So yeah, I think that's a really important outcome. And I think one of the reasons why we included the measure in the first place is because the project's funded by Energy Consumers Australia, and that it's really important to them to understand what consumers want, and to understand how we might be able to make the energy market fairer than it already is.
Well, it's a really complicated topic, and it's a really huge debate at the moment. And this idea of, as you mentioned before, the two different parts of the bill, the fixed and the variable part. Obviously, you'd have to be under a rock not to have noticed that debate going on in the in an energy rock anyway. In this sector, and sort of this idea of the haves and have-nots, which a lot of people think we shouldn't really even be thinking that way, which is fine to say, but I think there have to be far more tangible solutions, sort of showing that we're really trying to solve that problem, and that it really is, because you can see there are benefits to everybody that are coming from the huge uptake in solar and batteries. We've seen this from what the energy market operator has said recently. We've seen it in prices coming down. It's keeping the market more stable, all of that. But really, what people want is to see it on their bill, and I think if you can't see that and you can't sort of I guess, not brag, but talk about how solar's saving you money, then you are going to feel left out. And if bills rise, you're going to feel annoyed. So,
Yeah, and solar and batteries can be benefiting everybody, but still disproportionately benefiting some. Both
Yes.
things can be true.
Yeah, exactly. And it really needs a sector-wide approach and a lot of different solutions. I think that's one of the things that you quickly discover when you get into the energy industry, that it's never going to be one solution. It's going to be a whole lot, because there's a whole lot of different people with a whole lot of different needs that need to be addressed. So on that topic, what was some of the feedback you got from the non-solar households that participated in the study?
Well, we've got some, there've been some great case studies, and actually Energy Consumers Australia have put out some videos with some of our participants,
I have
including
not
some
seen
of the.
those. I'm gonna have to have a look.
Yeah, there's some posted on LinkedIn. There might be a few more coming out throughout the week. And they've talked to some of the participants, so probably best to ask them directly.
Yeah.
I think, as I said initially, there were some challenges with the sign up process. That was on us as the project managers for the study, and I think for some people, they did find the software, um, you know, not the most straightforward thing to engage with, just in terms of, okay, what are all these different types of trades? What do I need to do versus what does the study need to do? Um, Overall, I mean, I think there's some great stories of people trading within their family members, parents sending power to kids, and I think practically we, as the study, actually set up trades for people. So part of the study design was to create trading groups, and then we set up trades within those groups for people. So we took some of the kind of administrative side of it on ourselves. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it changed people's perceptions of fairness. I think for some people, um, if you're obviously more likely to benefit as a buyer if you're already using a relatively high amount of electricity in the middle of the day, or if you're able to shift. And so, not everybody's in that position. And I think, a whole lot of people are trying out lots of different things in the energy market. There's a lot going on, and we did see people adopting batteries. So we did a check-in survey to see whether people's kind of setup had changed over time.
Because you were kind of running concurrently with the launch of cheaper home
Well, you
batteries.
can't. I mean, that's the energy
Yeah.
market. Yeah, that's the Australian energy market at the moment. But yeah, again, just to make I guess, a methodological point, is that's exactly why it's so critical to have a control group. So this is a randomized control trial, exactly like a vaccine trial, where we have a treatment group. They're randomly assigned to get the treatment, and a control group. And that means that any changes in the energy market that are going on simultaneously are accounted for in the trial design. I think, a real bugbear of mine is that, there's so many trials going on in the energy market in Australia, but very few of them are randomized control trials. There's no effective control group. We're using before after comparisons, which, from the position of an expert, is just not the standard of evidence that you would like to see, particularly when there's so much public money going in to support these trials. So yeah, although there is a lot going on, we aren't worried about that impacting our results or biasing our results, precisely because we have this control group.
No, that's great. I hadn't thought of that in energy trials. You're right. It's really important approach. And some of the other findings are more to do with how these would work, and how people engaged and all of that kind of thing. What was some of the findings that you really found the most interesting and instructive?
Yeah. So I guess one of the reasons why we set out to undertake the study was to see what level of shifting there would be, what change in behavior, particularly for the people without rooftop solar, whether participating in this virtual energy network, getting cheaper power in the middle of the day would change how they used electricity. And we found that it very much did so. So we found that during the middle of the day at times when solar is at its highest, we're seeing 20% increase in consumption during those periods of time. So that's a big shift.
It is a big shift.
It is a big shift. Yeah, and we predominantly saw it actually from the smaller sites in our study. So keep in mind that all sites in the study are relatively small. It's just small business and households. But once we break that up even more, we notice quite a distinctive pattern. So the smaller sites tended to change their electricity usage a lot in response to the virtual energy network. But the larger users, they were still benefiting because they were getting cheaper power, but they didn't shift. They didn't change their electricity use. But
so perhaps they're less ability to do that or
yeah. I mean, we had small businesses in the study, so we didn't have many, but larger sites, if they tend to be small businesses, you might think that their production processes and things are pretty fixed. They've got pretty fixed use. Yeah.
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 But that really bodes well for the Solar Saver program, doesn't it? Because, I mean, if you think if people were motivated to do that because they know that they're going to get cheaper power, if I think they'd be very pleased if they saw 20% behavior change in this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What did it tell you about the potential for VENs in the future, and where they might be the most well embraced? I mean, is this going to be something that we think will be used by retailers more broadly, or do you think it's more something that, say, you might see is community specific, like a school might get solar and then share its solar on the weekends with families?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's huge potential. So even just, in the last few days, I've been getting emails from many community groups around the country asking about using a virtual energy network in their communities, including groups that are associated with a community battery and wondering,
Right.
how can you use this software and this idea of sharing, which, trading and sharing are synonyms. To be kind of tracking how that is being utilized and who's benefiting from it. That there's actually an example. It comes from Italy. A rent-a-panel scheme in Italy where the same technology is being used for apartment dwellers to rent a solar panel, so not, in their building, but somewhere else, and then they get the output of that panel for free. So, yeah. So I think there are a lot of different use cases, and a lot of them, at least the interest that I'm seeing is coming from a lot of community groups who really are, trying to push the transition in their community. And in fact, the whole reason for this study in the first place is because a group in the Wingecarribee area just outside Sydney, they actually started their own virtual energy network with Power Tracer and Energy Locals. And I heard about it through a webinar that I delivered, and we got together and scaled it up and evaluated it. So it seems like there's a big community demand for something else to better utilize and share what's available.
Yeah, and I think that word, I mean, community gets kind of bandied around a lot in energy, and in particular with the batteries. And it's interesting because I hadn't actually thought of that, but that's a really great way of making sure that those batteries really are community batteries. I think the concern has been that they get kind of put there, and the premise is that they're going to soak up the solar from the households around and make sure it's used well, but it's not very tangible for people. They can't,
No, especially for people who don't have solar. And again, I think that's one of the really key things is that it's benefiting both of those types of customers.
Yeah. So really, it can be virtual storage as well in a sense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And is there anything that I'm missing? I'm trying to think of what else I have in my notes that was really interesting. I mean, did you find any particular barriers that really need to be overcome, or things that instantly made people disengage or glaze over? Or
Yeah, look, I think, as I say, just in general, there's a lot of talk about complexity in the retail electricity market in Australia. I mean, I think that's the case in most markets. You think about insurance and mortgages, that it's not, it's different. I wouldn't say that being complex makes electricity unique. But I think that's one thing is just, it sounds, for some people, it sounds too hard. I don't think it actually is that hard. It just sounded a bit too complex for people. So yeah, I think simplifying, and I understand that yeah, Power Tracer and OC are working on a few, like the adopter panel idea is fairly straightforward, for people to understand. But yeah, being really able to articulate the benefits, I think, will be, yeah, more important.
that idea of community, it is strong, and I think it's something to latch onto. That you can share this, and that I mean that the solar that you're generating is not just going to spill out there and go to waste, because we're not really getting much money for that now. So yeah, so much better to be able to share it with people that you want to share it with, or people who are less fortunate and less able to invest themselves.
Yeah, and that's actually beneficial for the grid as well. So if we better utilize all of that excess solar, if we're shifting people's consumption, that's better for the grid. That means we can go harder and get more solar, and avoid some of the potential downsides of a lot of energy being produced at the same time and also in the same location, on the network.
And what's next for you now that you've completed this journey that you've been on, which must have been fascinating and crazy?
Well, it will take a few years for us to actually publish the paper. So there'll be we're quite interested to, go deeper into understanding the grid benefits of this trading. So now we understand what it does to behavior. We want to really understand try and estimate, quantify, the benefits to the grid, as sort of a companion piece of research.
Yep.
There's just so much going on in energy. I've got all sorts of projects on electric vehicle adoption, and yeah, it's, as you would
Yes.
appreciate it,
Absolutely.
there's so much going on.
Never a dull moment. This week has been particularly crazy with the integrated system plan being released, and another capacity investment scheme. But at the household level, I think is some of the most interesting stuff happening. And you mentioned electric vehicles, and it's funny. I feel like we're only just starting to get our heads around the two-way solar thing, and then the battery thing, and then now to have batteries on wheels and vehicle to grid. It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's a whole nother, I without wanting to wish time away, be so interesting to look back in 5 years' time even, and just see how much this will all be the norm. I think people, energy, it is confusing, but I think mostly it's just something people haven't really thought about much. Like, you don't think about it. You pay your bill and you maybe think it's too high and you find a different provider, but I think people mostly haven't wanted to think about it. And all of a sudden we are now thinking about it. And, we are more aware that there are different parts of the bill, and some parts, why is this bit going up and why is that bit going down, and how can I affect it?
I haven't got a study on this, and I would love to, but I could say that forever. When people adopt rooftop solar, all of a sudden they're so
Yeah.
interested,
Oh, I was the same.
right? And they're so engaged, and I think that's a causal effect, that y- you know if we expand, if people are excited about energy because they're participating in a virtual energy network, maybe they will become engaged.
That's right. If they
So,
can, like I did with my app I've got a very small system, but they can look at their adopted solar panel and see how it's going and go, ooh, I should put the washing on now because it's going great guns. It is. It's fun and it's satisfying. And it does feel like you're doing your bit. Aside from cutting your cost, you're also doing your
yeah,
bit.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about this. It's obviously there's going to be plenty more to come from a future report, and we've got these videos that I will look out for on LinkedIn. They sound great. But yeah, good on you for this study, which I think will be a fascinating insight into how different people can be engaged and how we can better use consumer resources.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
G'day, Alex Carey here, proud ambassador for GoodWe. The GoodWe ESA 3060 all-in-one commercial solution is available now from GoodWe wholesalers. With a massive 50 kilowatt hours of the battery eligible for the federal rebate, it's the perfect solution for small businesses. The commercial energy storage range from GoodWe is growing, with more models launching soon. Visit goodwe.com.au for more information or contact the local GoodWe team.
That was Andrea Nauze from Deakin University. That is all we have time for this week. Hopefully I will have my partner in crime, Rachel Williamson, back next time. But until then, thank you very much for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, Pylon and Fronius. And we will see you in a couple of weeks' time. Bye for now.
Solar Insiders was brought to you by GoodWe. Across residential and commercial installations, GoodWe's all-in-one ESA battery solutions support the solar industry with reliable, flexible energy storage. From rooftops to large projects, GoodWe is helping installers and businesses deliver smarter, clean energy outcomes. Discover more at goodwe.com.au. Solar Insiders is also brought to you by Pylon. Pylon provides easy-to-use solar design software for solar installers and retailers with pay-as-you-go pricing, no monthly costs and no lock-in contracts. Join Australia's top solar companies who trust Pylon to design high-resolution, CEC-ready solar proposals.